Hey everyone, welcome back to my channel, and today we're going to be repotting my orchid. So to begin, you need your orchid, obviously. You need a pair of gardening shears that you can use to trim the roots. You need some potting soil and mix, especially for orchids, which is basically a moss. You need some plant food for your orchid. You need a spray bottle of water. You don't need instructions, but I'm using them. You also need a pot that is appropriate size for your orchid, that is clear and has holes for drainage. And then last but not least, the decorative pot that you're going to actually put it in. So I'm going to choose the appropriate size. You want your clear pot to be about 1 inch wider than the existing orchid that you're working with. This is a very small one I got from Home Depot. So I'm going to use a smaller size because that's 1 inch around. So now that I have this, I'm going to remove the stakes. It's fall, so my orchids have already bloomed, the blooms have died, and I've already trimmed them, so I'm just left with the leaves, so I don't need those stakes anymore. So I'm going to take the orchid out of the decorative pot that it's already in, and as you can see, it's in a smaller, clear pot with drainage. So you just want to gently squeeze all around the orchid to loosen it up so that you're able to easily remove it from the pot. It's still a little wet from the last time I watered it. As you can see, it's just like a bunch of little vines that are kind of creepy looking, and it's around like some potting soil. So the next thing that we want to do is, I've got some newspaper on the ground, as you can see, is we want to remove the clear pot from the orchid, and then we want to just use our fingertips to just kind of like massage that soil out of the roots. So we basically want to remove all of the existing potting soil or moss or whatever the case might be, your potting material, so that you end up with just the orchid and just the loose roots. So you want to take your time. You obviously want to be gentle, but you just want to, ease out all of the soil. Okay, so as you can see, I've gotten the potting soil out. I'm left with just the roots. So we are halfway there to repotting this orchid. So you really just want to look around the roots for anything that is either black and mushy or is brown and turning mushy. That is the sign of a either already rotted or rotting root. So as you can see, the end of this one root is completely black and it's kind of mushy. So this is when we're going to take our gardening shears and we're just going to go ahead and clip the end of that particular root off. And so you're going to go around the entire orchid and do this. If you're like me, you may only have one root that is basically kind of rotting. Some orchids that are larger may have several. Thankfully, I didn't have a lot. That was pretty much the only one that I felt was, in bad enough shape to clip. So now that we have our orchid where we need it to be, we're going to grab this container that we're about to repot into. And now I'm going to open up my soil mixture. I got this kit from Repot Me, and I'm going to share the link with you in the description so you can shop there as well. It was awesome. It came really, really fast, and it has everything that you need to repot an orchid. So I'm going to just take the moss out here, as you can see, basically just enough to fill up the pot. And then I'm going to wet this with some water. So I'm taking my spray bottle, it's just plain old, purified water, and just kind of wetting down the moss. Not soaking wet, but just wet enough so that it's like more supple. It's easy to kind of move it around. And once you have this kind of moist or damp moss, you're just going to take it and you're going to pack those roots. So the same root system, I'm just basically going to just kind of stuff it and fill up those holes where the old potting soil was with this new mixture. So once I do that, I'm also going to pack in the bottom of my actual pot. And you can see here that I'm just twisting this pot around, and that just kind of helps everything to settle and pack in if you do that sort of twisting motion. As you can see, some of the other planting materials here just kind of fell on the ground, so I'm just going to use that to then pack the rest of this pot. I'm straightening up my little orchid here. I named her Stella, by the way. I totally forgot to tell you all that. So this is Stella. And so I'm just kind of packing these planting materials around Stella, making sure that she is straight, and that everything kind of looks good and it's neat. And once you have her in there in a solid way, like I said, you can just kind of add more material as you see fit. But she's in there solid, strong, everything is kind of packed to the top, and things are looking good. So now I'm going to go ahead and actually water her. You water your orchid once a week. So what I do is I usually do it on the weekends. Sundays are kind of my day. So I'm just going to kind of spritz around, especially that top part, to make sure that everything is damp. And then you're going to see me actually pour a little bit of water out in here too, just because that moss is super thick. And I just wanted to make sure that on this initial water, there's just enough hydration. Okay, so now that we've watered and potted our plant, this is actually the water that I'm going to use to feed my plant every week. So by using this orchid food, you actually dissolve it into water. So every time you water, you're also feeding your plant at the same time. So I'm going to take this little scooper here. I think this is like a teaspoon. I can't remember the exact measurement, but that came in the instructions. So you can, follow the instructions if you use this kit, or find a good water and food mixture online. But as you can see, I just dissolved that teaspoon into the spray bottle. I'm going to shake it up a little bit so that it's well mixed. Awesome. And then I'm just going to add a couple more spritz here so that it gets some food. She's perking up already. Okay, so I'm just going to add a couple more pieces of soil here. A little bit more moss. Just because from watering it down, everything kind of went down a little bit. And there we have it. So now the orchid is completely repotted, and it's time to put it in your decorative pot. I actually have a really cool pot coming from Rooted in Black, I believe, but they're kind of on back order, so I'm just using this IKEA pot that I have. Since the orchid was sitting down a little bit, I just took some sales papers, as you saw, and crumpled it in the bottom so that I can kind of sit it on there, and now it's kind of just about level. Here it was a little high, but I ended up adjusting it, and now it's level with the top of the pot. And that is how you repot an orchid. It's super simple. Hopefully this was helpful, and I would love to see your plant tips.